Welcome back to week 2 of our How To ISO series. This week we're going to look at a simple but valuable tool called an operational scan. So we'll look at what it is, why we might use it, who might be involved, how we might go about it, as well as looking at some of the benefits, and we'll go through some examples for you. So what is it? We'll put up a visual example shortly. It's really just a tool to help us do a scan of what is important to consider in our management system. What are our key risks? What are our key compliance obligations? What are some of the key opportunities that we could obtain by implementing a management system? As well as that opportunity as a business, getting different people together and starting to articulate and document, well, what do we want to achieve out of implementing a management system? It's a lot of work. So what do we want to achieve? Now, why do we encourage our customers to use this tool? Whether you're developing your management system internally, it's also a tool that we use when we engage with external customers, our customers, to help them develop a management system. It's really to get an understanding of, yes, when we develop a management system, often the focus, we see organisations very focused internally on what do we need to do to meet the requirements of the particular ISO management system standard we're trying to meet. ISO 9001 for quality, or ISO 27001 for information security, whatever it might be, or the safety standard, etc. We're often very focused on what we have to do to conform to the standard clause by clause. We really encourage organisations to use the operational scan to extend that thinking a little bit, to start to identify, as we said earlier, well, what do we want to achieve out of as a business through our management system, and what are the key things that need to be managed? And to really consider that as an input to the design of your system. This should be prior to documenting or designing too much of your system at this point. And why we're quite strong on advocating this with our customers is we often get to see the reverse. It's one of those things that really doesn't show up until you've implemented your management system for quite a number of years, 4, 5, 6 years, is when we tend to get called in by customers who are saying to us, we've had a management system for that amount of time, we've been certified for most of that time, so we're conforming to the standard, we know that, but we're not getting that much value out of it. And really, if you reverse what we've been talking about so far, that's not too much of a surprise, because if the focus originally was so tightly around what do we have to do to conform, you miss that opportunity to say, well, what do we want to manage as a business? What value do we want to get out of our management system? To consider all of those things, those other elements over and above just conforming, is not extra work, but you'll get more value out of it. Okay, so how do we go about it? You'll see the example, a couple of examples shortly. This is a very high-level activity. We really advocate don't get bogged down in detail. For example, we might look at key risks. That doesn't necessitate a detailed risk register at this point. We're getting together people from within our business with a lot of operational and management experience, and we're just going to talk about what we see as the key risks, as an example. Also, to just dot point it out, keep it simple. Who should be involved? Look, that can vary between organisations, but yes, some operational representatives is really good practice for lots of reasons. 2 of them. Number 1, it allows you to initiate some consultation and participation, which certainly, all standards advocate, but certainly ISO 45001, the safety standard, is very strong on that. As well as our operational staff have a lot of expertise around the operational processes, the risks in those processes, and how we can best manage them. A big source of information. We also advocate, and again, really important, and there's different reasons for this, is that you get at least some senior management involved straight away. And we'll look at that in a touch more detail shortly, but you may also consider other key internal stakeholders or even external stakeholders, perhaps through a separate process to identify, well, what are their key expectations out of our, say for example, our safety management system. Now, why do we involve senior management? look, this is really the opportunity for the team implementing the system to manage up a little bit, to articulate to senior management, well, what is the business value we can get out of our management system beyond simply conformance? You're making early steps to try and help senior management understand we're not just doing this for a tick on the wall. Here's the business value we can get out of the process. Once you start to educate senior management in that way, they pay more attention. It's more important to them rather than just something I can delegate as a CEO so that you can get us a certificate on the wall. We are also going to strategically use this opportunity to manage up in terms of getting endorsement for the outcomes of the operational scan. If we've all sat there and agreed, here's what we're aiming for, etc., well, let's get management to actually sign off on it. As our experience, one of those things, again, once you've been involved in management systems for a while, you'll start to realise that top management leadership and support is a key success factor for the effectiveness of any management system, and we really think it's the number one success factor. So let's have a look at some examples now. We're going to have a look at, first of all, let's have a look at an example of a construction business trying to aiming to meet the requirements of ISO 45001, the ISO Safety Management System standard. Now, the different boxes there, just that first one is talking about starting to get you thinking about the scope of your management system, where we will be covering that in our very next webinar. But it's really starting to think, particularly if we're a large, diverse business, well, what divisions, operational teams and processes are we applying our management system to, particularly if we want to go and seek certification, and in contrast, which ones are we not applying the full, say for example, safety management system processes to just as yet. We can also start to think about, and yes, you can obviously add more dot points, but what are our key risks? This particular hypothetical construction company, two of them might be working at heights. They know they have personnel doing that from time to time. That's a high-risk construction task. Same for if they're doing trenching works. Both of those things would help us start to identify the broad legal obligations that we need to manage through our management system as well as some of the, by implementing a management system, what some of the opportunities we can facilitate. Improving our culture, improving our safety performance, embedding safety practices a little bit better into our standard work activities, things like that. Even some of the key stakeholders, an example would be the safety regulator in your state, the WorkSafe regulator in your state. They would expect you to provide a safe workplace and meet safety regulations. Hence, we can't design a system for to achieve a level of safety performance below that. Or environmental performance. You can take the same thinking if it's an environmental management system. So let's have a look at a second example. This is a business providing professional consulting services. It might be a design consultancy, or it might be a engineering or building consultancy, something like that. Again, they can start to think about the scope of their system. Do they want to apply it to all consulting services and or all support parts of the business? What's the scope there? They can start to think again about some of their key risks, opportunities and compliance obligations that might come out of that. To follow that little example, yes, most design or engineering businesses, really important issue is that their design outputs, or their outputs rather, so be it a specification, a report, a drawing. Number one, we've got to meet customer needs if we're implementing a quality system, which is the case study this time, as well as our design outputs do need to be consistent with regulatory requirements of regulations, standards, building codes, things like that. So very, very important. If we fail to do that, that's a key risk for our business and can lead to substantial reputational damage, legal liability, things like that. So yes, by doing that, we can start to think about strategies. Okay, in the design of our management system, how can we manage those key risks? So let's put in place within our quality system processes to ensure all design outputs are reviewed and authorised by someone internally, an independent person who didn't do the design. Perhaps we will make sure We have processes within our system to make sure all our design and engineering staff have their professional development and professional qualifications are all up to date as well. So you can start to see how these things become considerations or inputs for the design of our management system. A final example, in this case we are looking at a data centre, a business that is looking to implement a management system, an information security management system. Now I won't go through every word there, but I've highlighted a key risk being around for any data center where they're storing customer data. Yes, a key risk is access control, basically. So a breach or breach or loss of that customer data is a very, very serious issue for a data center. It's a major risk. Again, there's regulatory requirements. But we're going to use this example and look at this. If I extend that to say, well, on the slide now you can see the management system model, that if you open up an ISO standard, it's always in the forward there. They'll have this kind of representation of a management system model. But all we're trying to highlight here, we're not covering, as we move around the standard, the planning elements, the support, the operational planning elements, operational control elements rather, or performance evaluation elements. I'm not highlighting every clause there, but I'm just trying to relate the thinking back to the key risk. So if a key risk is access control or loss of customer data, well, let's start on the support side. Let's make sure when we implement processes to ensure we have competent personnel through our recruitment and competency development processes and performance review processes, that there is some focus on access control. You can extend that when we assign resources. Let's ensure there's appropriate resources. There's appropriate operational planning for access control as examples. Again, I won't go right around the whole model here, but if we look at the performance evaluation measures, yes, when we conduct site inspections, yes, when we get our independent review, yes, when we do internal audits, let's make sure there's appropriate focus on access control, because that's a major risk for our business. You can start to see when you consider these things as design inputs into your system, you're going to get a lot more value out of your management system than simply just trying to meet the requirements of a standard and get a certificate on a wall. Some of the benefits, we can summarise them there. I won't repeat every word. I think we've touched on most of those already. Yes, they do help us focus. They do. It is the opportunity to manage upwards and get senior management endorsement. Yes, we can start to think about the scope and boundaries around our management system, which we will be covering, as I said, in our next video. We hope you have found this informative. If you want further information, yes, this blog is reproduced on our website. If you go to the resources page on our website too, there'll be this presentation and a recording of me. You're welcome to use this as an internal training session if you want to extend it to other people, as well as you will find under the resources, you will find a template called Operational Scan. Hope you've enjoyed this. Hope you're getting something out of this. Next week, as I said, we're going to be looking at how do we define the scope and boundaries of our management system. Thanks for watching.